They showed up in trucks. 6 men in uniform jumped out, clipboards in hand, barking orders like they were some kind of law enforcement. One of them pointed straight at my front gate and yelled, "Cut it open!" Before I could say a word, a guy with bolt cutters stepped up and snapped the lock like it was nothing. My lock, on my private ranch. I just stood there, frozen on the porch of the old wooden house I had spent months restoring with my own 2 hands. My heart was racing. I looked at the truck again. Bold red letters read, Cedar Grove HO Enforcement. HO Enforcement? What enforcement? I wasn't even part of the HOA. A short, angry woman in dark sunglasses with a walkie-talkie clipped to her belt stormed up the gravel path like she owned the place. "You're trespassing on HOA-governed land," she snapped. "You need to stop all work immediately and report to the HOA office. You owe Thurifus $500 in fines and $750 a month in dues for non-compliance." I stared at her, completely thrown. "I bought this ranch with cash. It was abandoned land. I have the deed in my name. This isn't even part of a neighborhood." She gave a smug little smile. "Not anymore. The HOA board voted to expand. You fall under our jurisdiction now. Maybe next time. Do your homework." My chest tightened. "Are you seriously telling me I risked everything, my life savings, $750,000, on a ranch I don't even get to control?" Her grin widened. "Oh, you can still live here, just under our rules now." And then came the roar of a chainsaw. I turned just in time to see 2 men hacking away at the arch I had carved with my own hands. The one that read Green Valley Ranch. I had spent weeks on that piece, gone in seconds. That was the moment I realized they weren't planning to leave. They came to claim, but they underestimated me. I wasn't giving up without a fight. Let me back up and tell you how this all started. 10 months ago, I found the listing for the ranch. After 15 years working as a commercial electrician in San Diego, scraping and saving every dollar, this was supposed to be my reward. I didn't grow up with money. My mom cleaned schools and my dad worked the docks until illness forced him to stop. This ranch was more than just land. It was my shot at freedom, at quiet, at finally living life on my terms, with no neighbors, no noise, and no one breathing down my neck. The ad claimed the place had been abandoned for over 30 years. No neighbors for 5 miles, no city rules, no HOA. Just acres of dry grass, a crumbling barn, and an old ranch house that had clearly seen better days. Most people would have laughed at the listing, but I saw a dream. I bought it outright for $420,000 and spent another $330,000 restoring it. New septic tank, solar panels, a greenhouse, a well, and a rebuilt barn stocked with actual livestock. The last time I'd felt that proud was when I helped my mom buy her first car after years of relying on the bus. But while I was working on the property, strange things started happening. Flyers appeared on my porch, letters unofficial looking. Envelopes showed up, stamped with Cedar Grove HOA. I assumed it was junk mail. This land had no ties to Cedar Grove, a gated community 4 miles away. Then the visit started. One Saturday, a man named Dale in a sweater vest knocked on my door and said, "Hi, just checking to see if you've registered yet." I laughed, thinking it was a joke, and told him I wasn't part of any HOA. He didn't laugh. He pulled out a folded map and pointed to a highlighted zone that now included my ranch. "You're within the new expansion zone. Didn't you get the notice?" "No," I said flatly. "I'm not joining your HOA. I bought this land as is. I checked the title. There's nothing connecting me to Cedar Grove." Dale gave me a cold smile. That's what lawyers are for. Weeks passed, and I thought it was over. I was wrong. Most people don't believe things like this can happen, but they were trying to make it happen. And I soon found out they'd done it to others before. They counted on folks being too scared, too tired, or too broke to fight back. I was none of those. Still, I didn't expect them to raid my property. That morning felt like a bad dream. They tore down my fence, ripped out my signs, and slapped a notice on my front door that read, under HOA review. My old black lab, Buck, barked wildly from the porch, chained up as always. One of the workers got too close, and Buck lunged. The guy jumped back and shouted, "That dog needs to be restrained. HOA pet policy. No aggressive breeds allowed." "Aggressive breeds?" I yelled, stepping off the porch. "He's a 12-year-old Labrador." "You'll have to appeal it." The woman with the walkie-talkie said it flatly, like she was reading off a script. I grabbed my phone and called the county recorder's office, demanding a supervisor. After some crackling on the line, a man named Clark picked up. I asked him what was going on, and his voice was cautious. "Sir, Cedar Grove recently filed a proposal to incorporate nearby lands into their jurisdiction. There's an active review. It hasn't been finalized yet." "But they're here," I interrupted. "They cut my gate, tore down my signs, and are telling me I owe them money. How is this even legal?" Clark hesitated. "Sir, technically it's not. If they're taking action now, they're acting without authority." That was the first time I felt a flicker of hope. I ran back outside, phone in hand like a weapon, and confronted the crew. "The county says you have no authority here." "Get off my land," the woman didn't flinch. "We'll see about that. Expect a visit from our legal department." Then she gave a sharp whistle, and just like that, her crew packed up and left like trained dogs, quick, quiet, methodical. I stood there sweating, heart pounding, staring at what they left behind. My gate was in splinters, my archway destroyed. My pride was shaken, but not my resolve. I wasn't backing down. I called Maria, a property lawyer friend from San Diego. I told her everything. "They're trying to bully you," she said immediately. "But if your deed doesn't have an HOA covenant and the expansion hasn't been approved, they're bluffing. They want you to fold before it's legal." "Can they really just expand and force me into it?" "There's a process," she said. "It takes time, and during that time, they can't do what they just did. That was illegal trespass." I looked around at the wreckage, the ruined gate, the damage to my porch. Maria said she'd start on filing an injunction to stop any further action. "But it's going to be a war," she warned. "HOAs have deep pockets, boards of directors, lawyers. They don't stop." "I've already poured my life savings into this place," I told her. "I'm not letting them take it from me," and I meant it. The next day, I installed cameras, rebuilt a temporary gate, and stayed up all night researching property laws, county zoning codes, and HOA regulations. I was ready to fight, but I wasn't ready for what came next, because 2 nights later, someone came back, and this time, they weren't wearing uniforms. They came quietly this time, no knocking, no warning. I was asleep when I heard it. At first, it was just a faint sound, boots crunching on gravel. Buck, curled beneath my bed, let out a low growl. I sat up, heart hammering in my chest. The ranch was supposed to be silent. No neighbors, no traffic, no footsteps in the middle of the night. I pulled on my boots, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped onto the porch with a hammer tucked in my belt. My rifle was still locked up in the barn. I swept the beam across the yard and froze. The temporary gate I'd built was torn down again. But this wasn't like before. No fluorescent vests, no trucks, no pretense. This was quiet, calculated. I scanned the dark, and movement near the barn caught my eye. 2 figures in dark clothing, flashlights off, slipping along the wall. These weren't HOA workers. They were trespassers. "Hey," I shouted, "you're on private property. I've already called the sheriff." It was a bluff, but they didn't know that. One of them darted into the trees. The other slid around the side of the barn, fast, silent. I ran after him, flashlight bobbing wildly, but by the time I rounded the corner, he was gone. The barn door was wide open. I stepped inside, hammer raised, my breath loud in the quiet. No one was there, just my tools, bags of livestock feed, and a strange smell, something chemical, sharp. Then I saw it, a metal canister by the wall, leaking. A clear fluid. I backed out immediately and dialed 911. When the fire department arrived, they tested the substance and gave me a grim look. "This is a type of industrial pesticide," the fire chief said. "Highly flammable. Banned in most states 1 spark and this entire barn would have gone up. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning I filed a police report for trespassing and attempted arson. The sheriff took it seriously, but he looked tired as he handed me back the statement. "Listen," he said, "these HOA types don't play fair. If they're trying to scare you off, it wouldn't be the first time. I've seen it." "You've seen this before?" "Cedar Grove's board has gotten aggressive," he said. "They've expanded twice already. Some folks sold out and left. Others lawyered up. It's a quiet fight. They don't want it public." I looked him square in the eye. Well, they messed with the wrong guy? I drove straight to the county records office and found Clark, the same man who'd warned me about the review. He pulled out the maps, the filings, and the official expansion proposal. Cedar Grove had filed for jurisdiction over the surrounding area, but nothing had been finalized yet. The public hearing was still 2 months away. So, legally, I asked, I don't owe them anything? "Correct," Clark said. "Not until, and only if, the expansion is approved, and even then you'd have the right to contest it." That's when the idea hit me. I was going to contest it, not just through lawyers. I was going to expose them. I called Maria as soon as I got home, and together we came up with a plan. Legal paperwork, county oversight, and most importantly, publicity. If Cedar Grove wanted to play dirty, we were going to shine a floodlight on every corner of it. But the HOA didn't slow down. That weekend, I got a certified letter demanding $7,800 in fines for unauthorized structures, excessive livestock noise, refusal to comply with landscaping guidelines, and my personal favorite, disruptive signage. They meant the wooden board I'd carved myself that read "Private Ranch, no HOA." Maria helped me draft a cease and desist notice, warning that any further intrusion or contact would result in immediate legal action. But instead of backing off, they struck even harder, and this time it hit me where it hurt. On Monday morning, I got a call from the local supply company. Someone from Cedar Grove had canceled my delivery of animal feed and solar parts, claimed I was vacating the property, told the drivers the ranch was under forced review. I had animals to feed. That day, they went without. I drove 2 hours round trip to restock. And I'll admit, for the first time, I started to doubt myself. Was this worth it? Was holding on to this land really more important than peace of mind? But then I remembered what it took to get here. 15 years of saving every penny. No vacations. No brand new trucks, no dinners out. I'd slept in my van during training jobs just to avoid hotel costs. I sacrificed everything for this land. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let a group of clipboard cowboys take it from me. I needed backup. So I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years, my cousin Eric, a contractor and former Army Ranger, now working in rural property security. He rolled in the next day with a 4-wheel drive, a duffel bag full of cameras and gear, and a look. That said he was more than ready for a fight. "Tell me where you want eyes," he said. We set up hidden trail cams, door sensors, motion lights, everything. I didn't just want to protect the ranch. I wanted proof. Proof of what the HOA was really doing. That night, Eric and I sat around the fire, coffee in hand, eyes on the dark hills. We talked strategy, watched the stars, and for a while I felt ready, but I had no idea what they were planning next. At dawn, I woke to the rumble of engines again, but this time it wasn't 6 trucks. It was a convoy, 12 vehicles, a trailer, and a bulldozer. And then a man in a suit stepped out, holding a megaphone. "Per order of the Cedar Grove HOA Board," he shouted, "we are exercising emergency compliance measures. You are hereby given notice. This property is under full jurisdiction." The bulldozer roared to life. It turned and began crawling toward my greenhouse, the one I'd built with my own hands from salvaged windows and rebar, the one that held my tomatoes, peppers, and herbs, my dream of a self-sufficient life. "Hey, get that thing off my land," I shouted, bolting barefoot across the yard, gravel slicing into my heels. Eric was already there, yelling louder than I was, a shovel in his hands, banging it against the bulldozer's blade with everything he had. The bulldozer's engine growled like a beast just woken up, but it didn't stop. The operator hesitated, eyes locked on me, but his foot stayed on the pedal. I stepped forward, planting myself directly in its path, arms wide like a human barricade. "If you touch my greenhouse," I shouted, "I swear I'll file criminal charges. You don't have the right." A man broke away from the group and approached like he owned the earth. Calm, smooth, not a single drop of sweat despite the rising heat. His name tag read Gregory Halt, HOA Legal. "Sir," he began, voice syrupy, with fake concern, "you are in violation of Cedar Grove HOA's emergency land use codes. This structure was not approved. We're within our rights to remove it." I laughed, loud, bitter, and edged with something close to madness. "Are you joking? I'm not part of your HOA, and you know it. This land isn't even under your jurisdiction yet." Gregory's expression didn't change. He opened a folder with a little flourish, like this was some kind of stage act. "As of this morning, the board has submitted an urgent appeal to expedite the expansion. The county zoning committee has been informed." "You mean bullied?" I snapped. Gregory smiled, all snake and teeth. "That's a strong word, Mr. Jenkins, but we'll let the courts decide." Behind us, the bulldozer's engine screamed louder, revving up for a final push. That's when Eric made his move. Without a word, he sprinted across the yard and climbed up the side of the bulldozer like it was nothing. In one clean motion, he reached the top, slammed the emergency kill switch, and turned to face them all. "If anyone here takes one more step toward this structure," he shouted, "I will consider it criminal destruction of property, and I will act accordingly." Gregory's face flushed deep red. "That's trespassing." "That's private land," Eric shot back, hopping down from the machine. "And I've got everything recorded." Gregory fumbled for his phone, clearly shaken. "You'll regret this." I stared at him without flinching as he turned and walked away, the rest of the convoy trailing behind like a retreating army. This time, their confidence was cracked. But I knew this wasn't over, not even close. Eric and I sat on the porch after they left, watching the sun stretch across the hills like nothing had happened. My greenhouse still stood, but my hands were shaking. "They're escalating," Eric muttered. "They want to scare me into quitting," I said. "And it might work," he replied. "Quiet now. If you don't hit back harder." That night, we got to work. Maria had already filed a restraining order request, but we needed more than legal paperwork. We needed attention, eyes, public pressure, so I called in a favor. Ashley, an old friend, who worked for a local news channel, agreed to come out the next morning with a camera crew. We handed her everything: footage from the raid, photos of the pesticide canister, the bulldozer confrontation, the supply cancellations, every dirty trick the HOA had pulled. "This is insane," she whispered, eyes scanning the files. "They're trying to annex your ranch by force." "I need people to know this could happen to them too," I told her, and she promised to tell the story. Just when I thought we might be gaining ground, another hit came. That evening, Buck started barking wildly. His growls turned frantic, almost desperate. I ran out and found him pawing at the dirt, drooling thick foam, eyes wide and glassy. Panic hit me like a punch to the gut. I rushed him to the vet, my heart in my throat. The diagnosis? Someone had thrown meat laced with chemicals over the fence, not enough to kill, but enough to sicken. On purpose. They tried to poison my dog. I filed another police report. This time, I demanded the sheriff investigate possible HOA involvement, but without footage of the actual act. It was suspicious but inconclusive. Eric was furious. "We need more cameras, everywhere." So we installed 6 more that night. Infrared, motion-triggered, wide angle. Every corner of the ranch was covered now. But I still couldn't sleep. I lay awake, wondering just how far they were willing to go. The next morning, Ashley's news segment aired. Her voice echoed from the TV on the porch, steady and serious, cutting through the cool morning like a warning bell. A local man is fighting back against a powerful HOA that's attempting to take control of his privately owned ranch through questionable tactics, including forced entry, threats, and even destruction of property. The news segment aired everything: footage of the raid, the bulldozer charging toward my greenhouse, and Buck lying groggy but alive at the vet. It hit hard. Then the comments started, "This is insane. How is this legal?" HAs are out of control. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was standing alone against a mountain. Strangers were standing with me. That afternoon, a knock came at the door. A woman stood on the porch, maybe 60, kind eyes, denim jackets unfaded at the seams. "Names?" "Linda," she said. "I live 2 miles north. Used to be outside Cedar Grove's reach, until they swallowed us up last year. I invited her in, and we sat on the porch, sipping iced tea in the long shadow of the hills. They tried everything on me," she said. "Fines, threats, shut down my chicken coop, even tried to seize my water tank." "What did you do?" I asked. "I sold," she said quietly. "Moved into town. Couldn't take it anymore." She looked away for a moment, eyes glassy. Then she reached into her bag and handed me a box. "But I saw your story, and I wanted you to have this. You're not the first, but maybe you can be the last." Inside were photos, letters, legal notices, documents, everything from her battle. Proof. They'd been doing this for a while. My fight wasn't just mine anymore. As she left, she turned at the bottom of the steps. "Watch your back," she said. "They don't like losing." That night, just after midnight, one of the new cameras sent an alert. Eric and I shot up and rushed to the monitor. 3 figures in hoodies and gloves crouched near the barn. Again. One held a gas can. Another had a flare. I froze. Eric didn't. He grabbed the shotgun and bolted out the door, boots pounding gravel. I followed, heart in my throat, adrenaline roaring. "Drop it. Right now." Eric's voice cracked across the silence like a lightning strike. He cocked the shotgun. The sound echoed across the hills. The men jerked. One bolted immediately, dropping the flare. The second hesitated, then took off. But the third, he tripped. His foot caught a coil of wire near the barn, and he slammed into the dirt hard. Eric rushed up, weapon low but ready. "Don't move!" I was right behind him, already dialing the sheriff. I bent down, grabbed a portable work light, and shined it on the man's face. He squinted, wincing under the brightness. He looked early. 30s, wiry, breathing fast. His hoodie bore a faint, unmistakable logo. Cedar Grove Maintenance. "You were going to burn my barn down," I said, voice cold, steady. "You brought gasoline. And a flare." I was just following orders," he stammered. "It wasn't." "My idea?" My stomach twisted. "Whose idea was it?" I asked. He clamped his lips shut. 15 minutes later, the deputies arrived. We handed them the surveillance footage, the gas can, the flare, and the confession. They took him into custody. One of the officers, jaw tight, muttered, "We've seen them push boundaries, but this is arson." I didn't say anything, just stood there in the dirt, sweat drying on my back, watching the patrol car disappear down the road. This wasn't a fight anymore, it was war, and I had no intention of backing down. The video spread like wildfire. Within 24 hours, we had over 80,000 views. Comments flooded in, some angry, some horrified, but nearly all of them outraged. People shared it with captions like, "This is land theft." "HOAs are out of control. This man needs support." And suddenly, it wasn't just my fight anymore. It was a movement. Veterans, farmers, families who'd lost homes to overreaching HOAs. They started tagging news outlets, political reps, advocacy groups. Maria told me she'd never seen anything like it. Even a few lawyers reached out offering help pro bono. That night, Ashley called again. Her voice was buzzing with excitement. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "You're trending on multiple platforms. 3 bigger stations have picked up the story, and I've got a Zoom interview lined up with a national morning show tomorrow. They want to feature you, live." I leaned against the wall, stunned. "Live?" "Yep," she said, "and they're calling it the Ranch Rebellion." Eric burst out laughing from across the room. Has a nice ring to it, but the next words from Ashley sobered us up. I've also got a warning for you. Off the record, a contact in the county office said Cedar Grove's legal team is furious. They're throwing everything they can at the zoning board. They're trying to push a vote through. Within the week, you don't have much time. I hung up and looked around the ranch. Scorched earth, broken fence, smoke-blackened trees, and felt something shift inside me. The fear was still there, but it was layered under something stronger now. Resolve. We printed flyers. We set up a website called Stand with Jenkins. People shared their own HOA horror stories there. We even created a GoFundMe to help cover legal fees and ranch repairs, and within 2 days it had crossed $30,000. Then came the rally. Dozens of people showed up, neighbors, strangers, even a few off-duty sheriffs who weren't thrilled about what Cedar Grove was doing behind the scenes. Linda came back, this time holding a handmade sign, "This land stays free." Ashley's crew was there filming, and other outlets showed up too. Drones buzzed overhead. Eric patrolled the edges. With binoculars, keeping watch, we marched to the county zoning office the morning of the emergency vote. Peaceful, but loud. Dozens of voices chanting, "No force, no fraud, no annex without consent." Maria presented everything: Linda's documents, our footage, the pesticide, the surveillance, the man caught with the flare, and now the burn notice used as justification for annexation. The board looked overwhelmed. Then I stepped up to speak. I didn't give them legal jargon. I just told them what this ranch meant to me, what I gave up to build it, what it felt like to be harassed, threatened, poisoned, nearly burned out, and how many others like me were watching. There was silence when I finished. Then the chairman of the zoning board leaned forward and said, "We'll need time to review all of this thoroughly. The emergency vote is suspended until further notice." Cheers erupted. Ashley caught it all on camera, and even though I knew it wasn't over, not by a long shot, that moment felt like a line in the sand. They pushed, I pushed. Back, and this time they had to stop. But just as the adrenaline started to settle and we returned to the ranch, Eric got a ping from one of the trail cams. A new figure had arrived, a black SUV parked just beyond the property line. Inside, Gregory Holt, and he wasn't alone. I showed the cameras the sabotage, the arrests, and the patterns. I told my full story, and people listened. They showed up. Dozens drove in from nearby counties, standing by the roadside with signs that read things like "Stop HOA Abuse," "Hands off private land," and "Ranches aren't subdivisions." Ashley returned with her whole crew and did a live field report. We even invited local officials to come see the damage with their own eyes. That's when the real bombshell dropped. One of the zoning board members who toured the ranch pulled me aside afterward and whispered, "I'm not supposed to say this, but Cedar Grove has been pressuring us for months. Threats, bribes, promises of donations if we push their expansions through quickly. You're saying they're corrupt. I'm saying..." She looked me dead in the eye. "You need to come to the hearing. Bring everything. If you do, you might actually stop this." And I planned to. But right before the hearing, as Eric and I were going over the documents and evidence, one of the cameras pinged again. This time, it showed someone in a suit, walking alone with a folder in hand. It was Gregory Holt, the HOA's lawyer. He came right up to the porch and knocked. Eric moved for the shotgun, but I held up a hand. I wanted to hear what he had to say. Gregory looked tired, sweat at his collar, and there was no smug smile this time. "I'm here to make you an offer," he said. I narrowed my eyes. "You've got 5 seconds." He raised the folder. "The board wants to settle. No annexation, no expansion. In exchange, you sign a confidentiality agreement and stop talking to the media." I stared at him. They were finally scared, but what he didn't know was that I had no intention of settling. Not anymore. I didn't take the folder. I didn't even look at it. I stepped closer, met his eyes, and said, "You're a little late. I'm not interested in hush money." He blinked and adjusted his tie. "It's not hush money, Mr. Jenkins. It's a reasonable agreement. This has gotten out of hand. You've made your point." "No, Mo," I said. "You crossed the line. You raided my land, tried to poison my dog, sent a bulldozer after my greenhouse, and a man with a gas can after my barn. And now that people are watching and I've got the evidence, you want to make it all disappear?" Gregory looked away. He didn't deny a thing. I pressed on. "You tell your board this ranch isn't just dirt and fence posts. It's my life. I'm not selling it. I'm not joining your HOA. And I'm damn sure not backing down." He gave me a dry, forced smile. "Then I guess I'll see you at the hearing." "You will," I said, "and I won't be alone." He turned and walked away, slower this time, no smug strut like before. He knew he was beat. The cracks in Cedar Grove's wall were finally showing. 2 days later, I walked into the zoning board hearing. The room was packed. Officials, Cedar Grove reps, press, citizens, and dozens of supporters holding signs that read, "Protect private ranches and say no to forced HOA expansion." Maria stood beside me with a binder full of legal documents. Eric sat behind me, arms crossed, looking every bit like a bodyguard. Ashley from the news station was in the far corner of the room, her cameraman already recording. When the meeting began, the president of Cedar Grove, a slick guy named Douglas Kane, stood up in a perfectly tailored suit and launched into his speech. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board, we are simply trying to bring unity and consistency to our growing community. Our expansion plan includes incorporating nearby lands, including a parcel currently occupied by Mr. Jenkins, who we believe could benefit greatly from our support and oversight." "Support," I muttered under my breath. "You mean harassment." Then it was my turn. Maria handed me the binder, and I walked to the podium. My heart was pounding, but I held on to everything I'd been through, every nail I'd hammered into my barn. Every night I slept with one eye open, every underhanded stunt they'd pulled. I began. "I'm not a politician. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a man who saved for 15 years to build a dream, and that dream was nearly destroyed by an HOA that believes land ownership means nothing unless it's under their thumb." I showed photos of the property before and after the raid. I played the video of the bulldozer, the flare, the man we caught trying to burn down my barn, and the arrest that followed. I read Linda's story aloud about her chicken coop, her garden, and how she was forced to sell because she had no fight left. The room fell silent. Then I said what changed everything. "You're not just voting on paperwork today, you're voting on whether people like me, people who want to live free and work their land, deserve protection from power-hungry neighbors hiding behind rules they made up themselves." The chairman leaned forward. "Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Jenkins?" I nodded. "Yes, I have over 3,000 signatures from residents and landowners in this county who oppose forced HOA expansions, and more are coming in every day." I handed over the petition and returned to my seat. For the next 2 hours, there was debate. Cedar Grove's lawyers fidgeted. The board asked tough questions about legality, history, ethics, and they kept circling back to the same issue. Why did the HOA act like they already owned land that wasn't theirs? Then something remarkable happened. One of the board members, the same woman who'd warned me weeks earlier, stood up. "I move that we deny the emergency expansion request from Cedar Grove HOA and refer their conduct for independent investigation." The vote was taken, 4-1. Motion passed. I had won. Cedar Grove was stopped. But that wasn't the end. 3 weeks later, I received a letter from the county prosecutor. They had opened a case against the HOA for multiple counts: illegal trespassing, attempted property damage, harassment, and possible bribery of zoning officials. Gregory Holt was disbarred, pending investigation. Douglas Caney resigned, and the Cedar Grove board was replaced. I became something of a local hero. I didn't want the fame, but I accepted the responsibility. I gave talks at landowner meetings. I worked with Maria to help others fight back against forced HOA abuse. Even Eric started his own business helping ranchers secure their property rights. But the real victory peace. My ranch is quiet again. The wind moves through the trees the way it always has. Buck chases squirrels again, this time without fear. My greenhouse stands tall, sturdy and proud, and the tomatoes are finally ripe. Above the gate, on the same old archway I rebuilt with my own hands, I carved new words. Not for sale, not for lease, not for HOA. But just when I thought things were finally settling down, a new envelope arrived. No logo, no return address. Inside, a single note. You may have won the battle, but the land war has only begun. I stared at it, the burn creeping back into my chest. Slowly, I folded the paper and set it down beside my coffee mug. If Cedar Grove, or anyone else, thought that message would scare me, they hadn't learned a damn thing. Not yet. Buck lay at my feet, still limping slightly from the poison, but alive, thank God. Outside, the tall grass swayed in the breeze like the land itself was breathing again, but the message was clear they weren't done. I called Maria first. She was deep in the legal fallout from Cedar Grove's collapse. Could be a scare tactic, she said, voice calm, or it could be someone new. There are a dozen HOA boards in this county. Some are quiet, some not. Eric wasn't so diplomatic. We doubled down, he said. More cameras, more fencing. I've got buddies who'll run perimeter sweeps twice a week. If they want a land war, they picked the wrong ranch. But I was tired. Not broken, just worn down. I'd fought the hardest battle of my life, and now they wanted to start again. Still, I knew one thing for sure. If I walked away now, they'd win. Not just legally, but in the minds of every landowner who was watching. Fear spreads fast, faster than fire. So I did what I had to. I organized a community town hall, rented out a local building, and invited everyone, ranchers, homeowners, veterans, retirees, anyone who'd ever been bullied by an HOA or who felt unsure about what they were allowed to do on their own land. More than 200 people showed up. Some brought legal documents. Some brought tears. One elderly couple brought a tray of cookies and a manila folder so thick it looked like it had been through a war. 10 years' worth of records from fighting an HOA that fined them for planting too many sunflowers in their yard. When it was my turn to speak, I stepped up to the mic and looked out at all those faces. I'm not here to sell you anything, I said. I'm just here to remind you that you own your land, not your neighbor, not a clipboard, not a board. Of strangers who never dug a post hole in their life. You do. The crowd applauded. It was powerful, humbling. In the weeks that followed, I helped people contest bogus fines, rebuild broken fences, and, most importantly, understand their rights. But I hadn't forgotten the note, and neither had whoever sent it. One evening, just as the sun dipped below the ridge, I spotted a drone hovering above my barn, not passing by, hovering. Eric and I watched it from the porch, silent. Want me to shoot it down? He asked. Not yet, I said. Let's watch. The drone hovered a few more seconds, then zipped high into the air and vanished toward the hills at the edge of my property. The next morning, I drove out, there, past the windmill, down the trail that leads to the old irrigation ditch, and that's when I saw them. Survey flags, red and white markers staked into the ground in a neat line, dozens of them running parallel to my fence. A fresh land survey. I followed the line of flags until they led me to a truck half hidden behind a cluster of trees. On the side was a logo that read, Oak Ridge Development Co. A man stood beside it, clipboard in hand. When he saw me approaching, he smiled, too friendly to be real. Hey there, neighbor, he called out. Just doing some early prep. We're looking at a new luxury community up this way. Maybe a golf course, a spa, modern living. I stepped closer. This is private land. He pointed at his map. Everything past that ridge just got bought up. Our client is filing for annexation. You're sitting right next to the planned entrance. My jaw tightened. Who's the client? Another smile. Can't say, confidential. But I didn't need a name. I knew. HOA wasn't just a board, it was a network. Cedar Grove may have fallen, but others were waiting in the wings. Different name, different face, same old hunger. They weren't trying to join me. They were trying to surround me. I left that site fuming, but focused. This wasn't the end. It was round 2. I met with Maria and Eric that same evening. We go federal, I told them. Maria nodded. With the media coverage and community support, we had grounds to push for a state-level ordinance, something to limit forced annexation and HOA overreach. Eric added, let's bring in other victims, bigger stories, class action lawsuits. Let's start a real movement. So we did. We founded a nonprofit called Land First, dedicated to protecting private landowners from unauthorized HOA expansions and abuse. We built a website, created legal templates, published how-to guides, and shared stories, including mine. Donations began trickling in, not millions, but enough to cover printing, legal filings, and give a voice to those who couldn't afford. 1. Retired farmers, widows, first-time landowners, people like me. We didn't just fight back, we taught others how to win. The drones stopped showing up, the flags disappeared, and eventually the quiet returned. 4 months after that encounter by the ridge, I sat on my porch with Buck. The sky was wide and clear, chickens clucked in the yard, and a delivery truck rolled up with fresh timber for a guest cabin I was building near the stream. The driver, a guy named Roy, handed me a clipboard. As he turned to leave, he paused. "Hey," he said, "you the guy from that HOA fight? That video went viral." I chuckled. "Yeah, that's me." He grinned. "You gave us all hope. Man, HOA tried to pull some stuff in my mom's neighborhood. She printed your story and passed it around at the board meeting. They backed off." I smiled. "Tell her to call me if they ever come back." As Roy drove off, I looked out over the ranch again. It was still mine. Every fence post, every storm-bent tree, every weed I'd stubbornly refused to spray, and I knew I'd never stop protecting it, because this ranch isn't just land. It's a message to anyone who thinks they can take what doesn't belong to them. You don't bully the wrong man and expect to walk away untouched. So if you're out there, on your land, fighting a battle that feels too big to win, remember this: you're not alone. And if an HOA ever shows up with fines, threats, or made-up rules, you tell them about Green Valley Ranch. And you tell them, we don't scare easy. If you enjoyed this story and want more jaw-dropping, true-inspired tales about land, HOAs, or justice served, hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for the next unbelievable story.